As much as I love Pokemon, there was a competitor show that I enjoyed even more. I'm of course talking about
Transported to a faraway land, into a world where monsters rule.
No, wait. That's not right. It's the other Monster Tamer show.
Digimon, digital monsters, Digimon are the champions.
Even though Pokemon had the better games, and toys, and cards, and publicity to be honest, Digimon had the better show. So let's take Digimon and put them into a Pokemon game as I Nuzlocke Pokemon Nova Red, a fire red ROM hack with modern features like the physical special split, fairy type, and Digimon. Before we begin, do you have a favorite Digimon? Let me know in the comments down below. And be sure to subscribe to the channel to show your support for Digimon. Right after the title screen, a notice pops up suggesting that you don't Nuzlocke this game on your first playthrough. And you know what? Nobody tells Nuzlocke Joe how to Nuzlocke. Just for that, I'm gonna Nuzlocke even harder. There are some other instructions that are actually pretty useful, but more on that later. For this Digimon run, I obviously need to beat Tai, which makes Matt my natural rival. Aside from replacing the word Pokemon with Digimon, nothing has really changed yet until I get to the starter options. We have the grass type, the water, but as Tai, I obviously need to choose the fire type Koromon. Fairly soon, he will become the iconic Agumon. By the way, I decided against giving out nicknames, which may have been a mistake, but I wanted to use the actual Digi names, as confusing as they may be. Well, here is my Koromon, who obviously has Blaze, and his main move is Bubble Blow instead of Tackle. Unfortunately, his bubbles prove to be weaker than Matt's Bukamon's bubbles, and he immediately gets knocked out. But the first rival battle doesn't really count, because I don't have Digiballs, so let's just keep it going. Once I actually get the Digidex and some Digiballs, it's time to start taming some digital monsters. The first one I get is Koromon. And because Digimon have way more branching evolutions, the Digidex tells you how each one digivolves, so it's not as confusing as it could have been. On Route 22, I get Pichimon, who is a water type, which I'm really going to need for Brock. The old man in Viridian is still blocking the way, but this time he encounters a Gomamon. Now if you don't know much about Digimon, they get stronger as they digivolve, not unlike Pokemon. But they have evolution stages, where all of the ones I've caught so far are baby or in training Digimon, while Gomamon is a rookie. The next steps are Champion, Ultimate, and finally Mega, though not every Digimon gets that far. In case you forget, just think of this catchy song to help you remember.
A Digimon in training will digivolve to rookie and digivolve to champion and ultimate too.
As much as I want a rookie, on the next route I get another baby, Chubomon. And in Viridian Forest, the last encounter before Brock is Minomon, yet another baby. But this one kind of looks like Wormmon's pre-evolution, so that could be cool. On my way out of the forest, Pichimon becomes the very first one to digivolve into Chapmon, a weird looking rookie duck. But again, it's a water type, so I kind of need it for Brock. I am a bit bummed I wasn't able to get a Modimon in Viridian Forest, because I know that he becomes a Tentomon, which is one of my favorite Digimon. But oh well, with my new team, I am ready to fight Matt once again. He starts with Yokomon, which looks like a grass type, so I swap to Koromon to Baby Flame, the non-grass Digimon. Turns out she's a normal type. Koromon still would have won that though, if Matt didn't switch to Bukamon instead. Minomon comes out to paralyze him, before swapping to Chapmon, who slowly takes him down with whirlpools and water guns. Since I now know that Yokomon is a normal type, Chapmon can easily defeat her too. Now you might think my revenge is complete, since I beat Matt like he beat me, but I'm just getting started. Before facing Brock, while getting to the level cap, a number of my guys digivolve, including Agumon, who arguably is the Pikachu of Digimon since he's the most well known. And I was right about Wormmon, by the way. The only problem is, my team currently consists of 2 normal types, a fire, a bug, and 1 water. So this battle all hinges on my duck. Brock starts off with Gatsumon, a Geodude with legs, who is immediately one-shot with a water gun. Off to a great start so far. Now I know that Kudamon is a rock water type, but Champion is still my best option. Unless he has Storm Drain and is powered up by water moves. I did not see that coming. I have some idea of what Digimon to expect from the gym leaders right now, but not their moves or abilities. Okay, let's try my backup strat. I pivot to Gurumon, who has multi-scale, reducing how much damage he takes when at full HP. and then I use Bide and hope for the best. The second water gun does way more than the first, but thanks to a citrus berry I found lying on the ground, Gurumon survives the hit and unleashes his pent-up anger for the win. Well, that battle could easily have taken a dark turn if it weren't for whatever the heck Gurumon is. I don't actually recognize him, but I do get the first badge. Now, I apparently could have done this earlier if I had checked my Digidex, but Chatmon has like a million ways to Digivolve. So I buy a glowy Digi-Egg from the mart, which lets Chatmon evolve into a Numamon? Oh, yuck. Numamon are like the Garbodor of Digimon. They stink. Literally. They throw poop around and nobody likes them. Either way, he is my first champion level Digimon. This Magikarp salesman has turned a new leaf. Instead of selling crappy fish Pokemon, now he sells crappy fish Digimon. It's completely different. After all, this fish has boxing gloves. On Route 3, I catch an electric metal Koromon, and in Mount Moon, I finally get a grass Digimon. Both of those guys should be excellent for the upcoming Misty battle. But first, I need to beat up Matt once again.
You're not getting away that easy.
Since I've made it this far without a single death, not that I'm very far at the moment, I get cocky and decide to match team sizes for the upcoming major battles. I once again made a false assumption about Digimon typing. I assumed that Biyomon would now be fire flying, but she turns out to just be flying. So I pivot to Kokuamon, the evolution of Metal Koromon, who is a steel electric type. Okay, from now on, I will be more careful about these Digimon typings. Gomamon is quite clearly a water type, and he falls in a few thunder shocks. Bodomon is the equivalent of Abra, because all he does is teleport himself to death. Last is Ketomon, a freaking dragon type. It's a bit early to have a dragon, isn't it? But a few sonic booms easily takes him out. So this robot Digimon basically soloed that entire rival battle. Not bad for a rookie. The next two encounters are a Chichomon, I have no idea what the heck that thing is, and a Petitmon. In Bill's house, I am somewhat disappointed that this is still a Clefairy sprite, but I get it. There were already a ton of other changes made in this game. You can't expect everything. Back in Cerulean, Misty only has 2 Pokemon, so I stick with my electric and grass types. Now, Parasauramon looks like a dinosaur, but he's actually a plant. Betamon is a water poison type, so I lead with Kokuamon, who is steel. Unbeknownst to me, Betamon has Mud Slap, which is 4 times effective to my robot. It's a good thing that Betamon is so weak, it didn't really matter. Now Starmon is water electric, so I pivot to Parasauramon, who gets hit with Powder Snow, but heals basically all of that damage with a Mega Drain, and then easily wins me the second badge. This run is going pretty well so far. At this point, the crappy, not at all Magikarp-like fish Digimon evolves into a marine Chimeramon, an ultimate Digimon who doesn't evolve anymore. He also just so happens to be a water flying type with Intimidate and super high attack. Nothing like Gyarados at all. On my way out of Cerulean, this dude is upset that Rocket stole his Dig TM because he wanted it for his Digimon, both of which I recognize and can easily picture. I feel quite proud of myself right about now, so it's a good time to go on a catching spree. First, I get Wanyamon, who I also recognize, then the aptly named Crabmon, followed by Sunmon, and last, in Diglett's Cave, I get this ground-type Digimon who we'll see again shortly for the upcoming gym battle. Because he did such a great job last time, for this mat battle, I just go ahead and lead with Kokuamon. He easily defeats Biyomon and Gomamon with just a few Thunder Shocks. But Hopmon has Dragon Rage, putting him down to the red. So Chimeramon comes out with a rain-boosted Aqua Jet for the knockout. Last is Wizardmon, who is actually a pretty awesome looking sprite, but he can't stand up to Chimeramon. But as great as he is, he needs to be boxed for the Lieutenant Surge battle. Surge starts off with Kabuterimon, taunting me because I'm never going to get one. This guy is a bug electric, so Agumon's Fire Fang is super effective. He heals paralysis, thanks to a Lumberry, and a few more hits finishes off that absolutely massive bug. How exactly does he fit in this gym? Now Darkmon, as the name implies, is a fairy type, so I use this opportunity to show you that HMs like Cut have been changed to make them more useful. Cut, for example, gives you an attack boost, which is pretty awesome. The other HMs, though, we won't get a chance to see. More on that later. With plus attack, a Fire Fang finishes that thing. Last on Surge's team is the Unicorn Pegasus Unimon, obviously a flying type. Now, I'm not sure what moves he has, but I'm confident that Kokuamon can resist them. turns out he has Feint Attack, which actually does a decent amount. But with a Metal Sound and a Citrus Berry, 2 Thunder Shocks takes him out, as Kakuamon barely survives. That was close. With that new level cap, a few team members digivolve, and I get Greymon, Stingmon, Andromon, and in Rock Tunnel, I catch Tokamon, who promptly evolves into Patamon and then Angemon. I'm pretty excited for that Digimon line. I decide to go face off against Matt in the Pokemon Tower to get an idea of the level caps for upcoming battles. Chimeramon starts off with a cut, boosting his attack, and then takes out the now Fire-type Birdramon with Aqua Jet. Wizardmon disables the Jet, but it can't save him. On the Dragon Monodramon, I pivot to the Fairy-type Angemon to one-shot with his Hand of Fate. Parasauramon takes out Ikakumon with a couple of Magical Leaves and Giga Drains. Last, Sunfloramon is Nova Blasted just as the rain stops. Now I can't do anything in the Pokemon Tower because Sylph Scope, at least that was my assumption, I didn't actually check, so let's head to Celadon right after catching this literal piece of poop. The only thing in the game corner is a ticket to Birth Island, so through less than legal means, I get it, but I think I need to actually beat the Elite Four before it does anything. This seems like a post-game item. Eevee is replaced with Vmon, which I guess makes sense, but with his branching evolutions. I also evolve Knumamon into Mermaimon, which is a bit of an awkward entity to keep imprisoned in a Digiball, if you ask me. After clearing out most of the rockets from their underground hideout, I get my Giovanni team ready, but against the very last rocket grunt, an Edamon Thunder Punches Chimeramon, knocking him right out. That was unexpected. Since Mermaimon is also a water type, I bring out Parasauramon, who is immediately Fire Punch crit to death. Well, this is going poorly all of a sudden. Since I'm using my Giovanni team, the last Pokemon I have with me is Mermaimon, who thankfully can take out the Fighting Monkey with Confusion because she is a water psychic type. I guess Edamon is like Hitmonchan in this game. And that marks my first 2 deaths, back to back. Okay, I guess it's time to get new water Pokemon for this Giovanni battle, including the Crabmon that I got before Search. He digivolves, and I lead with him, Ebidramon, who has decent attack and learns Crabhammer. With a wide lens, it's not likely to miss, and Tortamon is easily defeated. Tyrannomon outspeeds, but is one-shot thanks to a crit. Now, Dark Tyrannomon is not a fire type, so Crabhammer leaves him alive, and he Dragon Tails the Psychic type Mermaimon right out. I'd rather not lose her, so I pivot to Gammamon, the evolved form of Guramon, to use Return. By the way, I haven't mentioned it yet, but the farther I go in this game, the less accurate my guide is, so I don't actually know level caps or even Gym Leader Pokemon very accurately. In other words, I'm not doing these fights completely blind, but I certainly don't have my glasses. For Erica, I let Sunmon evolve into Coronamon and lead with him, keeping the Digimon I actually like in the back, just in case something happens. Shuramon is defeated by a Mystic Fire, Fire Punch combo. Makuramon is a fighting grass type who outspeeds and rock slides Coronamon. That's why I started with him. But I didn't expect Erica to have a rock move. If I did, I wouldn't have brought only fire and bug types. Here's hoping Greymon is fast and strong enough to one-shot this monkey. He is not, but the monkey bulk ups and gets burned by a Nova Blast. That is about as lucky as I could have hoped for. Erica wastes a turn to full heal as Greymon uses Cut to boost his attack. Last is Lilamon, who is 1 level lower than I thought, so I'm slightly above the level cap, but it's okay. There's plenty of times when I'm below the level cap in the future. Nova Blast misses, it's only 90% accurate after all, and Greymon barely survives a crit Earth Power. Well, Erica is really good at countering her fire-type weakness apparently. Since Lilamon is a grass fairy, poison is 4 times effective, so a single cross poison from Stingmon does the job. Though I almost lost my starter there, so it was not a clear-cut victory. Back in the Pokemon Tower, I catch a Bakamon, the Digimon I totally expected to see here. Mr. Fuji, as always, gives me a Pokeflute, which was expected, but the Mega Ring, not so much. This seems like more of a post-game thing, because I didn't actually find a single Megastone, so it's not really relevant to this run. Still cool though. The sleeping Snorlax actually ends up being a Monzamon, which is a giant stuffed looking teddy bear, so that's appropriate. Jumping ahead to Fuchsia, in the Safari Zone, I encounter a Sneemon and catch him first try. He's probably a common Digimon here, but In my mind, this is equivalent to catching a Scyther in the Safari Zone, so that's pretty cool. Before facing Koga, we have yet another Digivolution Fest, including getting an Ultimate Metal Greymon, and the Mega Ancient Mermaimon. And I believe she is my first Mega Digimon. I've been waiting for this one for a long time, ever since I Digivolved her with that egg right after Brock. Koga leads with Chrysalimon, who I totally recognize as the champion version of Diaboromon. You know, the one from the movie? Tortamon fails to hit him, loses his soft sand, but does finally take him out. To avoid another miss, Tortamon uses Dig on Dragomon, who is a poison dark type Digimon, but he still has Surf. Tortamon hangs on with a single HP and digs again. That was a close one. I pivot to Phantomon to save Tortamon, but he is hit with a knockoff that immediately takes him out. Okay, that death lets Ancient Mermaimon come out with a Drizzle, pretty awesome ability, and Jodumon is a ground type, so Scald takes him out after yet another knockoff. Now Paildramon is 8 levels higher than me, so I was a bit too low, apparently, but I didn't want to risk over-leveling for Sabrina because again, I don't know the level caps. I don't want to lose this girl, so I pivot to Metal Greymon on a Night Slash and start to dig as Paildramon Dragon Dances. That is never a good sign. A double Dragon Dance Night Slash fails to knock me out, and one last dig defeats the Poison Dragon. Well, I'm glad it didn't come to it, but I feel like I easily could have wiped there with a bit of unluck. In the Saffron Dojo, Mermaimon easily defeats the Puncher and Kicker, and I choose Metal Edamon as my prize, yet another Mega Digimon. After all, I've seen how good he can be when I was unprepared. With that new team member, let's head to Silphco for another mat battle. Garudamon gets a crit wing attack, but falls to a rain boosted Scald. The clearly fire-type Meramon obviously does as well. Now Zudomon, Gomamon's ultimate form, is a water-electric type. So, anticipating an electric move, I pivot to Andromon, the evolved form of Kokuamon. He digivolved a long time ago, but this is the first time I've used him in a major battle in a while. After a Metal Sound, 2 discharges defeats Matt's ace. Strike-Dramon is a dragon type, so Fairy Magna Angemon can easily take him out, and look at that awesome sprite. Wizardmon is also Moonblasted for the win, though that takes a couple of hits. With that battle, it looks like I might be getting back into a rhythm, so hopefully we don't have any more deaths. I am gifted a Plesiomon here, which is pretty much a Lapras. He immediately goes on my team for this Giovanni battle. Now Speedomon is a ground dragon type, so he survives the first 2 hits by Meramon. I can't swap because of Arena Trap, but eventually he falls to a burn. Master Tyrannomon survives Magna Angemon's Moonblast and runs away to Chaos Dramon, who is a fire type. So I bring out Gusakumon, the fully evolved Crabmon, to Aqua Jet. Alomon is a rock dragon with some bling or something, but with the rain, a few crab hammers is all I need. Last is Master Tyrannomon, who gets one more hit before falling. There were an awful lot of non-ground types there, Giovanni, and it really threw me for a loop. In preparation for Sabrina, I went through all of my Digimon with all of their branching Digilutions trying to find a dark type, but I couldn't get a single one. So let's try something else. Shakomon is ground psychic and falls to Mermaimon's Scald. Ancient Chasmon takes 2 Shadow Balls and does only a bit with Night Slash. Rafflesmon is a grass psychic, so I pivot to Sneemon to use X-Scissor, which works out perfectly, allowing him to also X-Scissor the dark psychic Piedmon. That went way better than expected for not having any dark types. Now, due to some illegal game hacking that I may or may not have done, I messed up the HMs really badly and lost access to all of them except for Cut. This is what happens when you try to cheat. But apparently I didn't learn my lesson because I cheat some more to allow myself to walk on water at certain locations. So this game is still doable for me, but I will never be able to use HMs like Surf in battle, which is unfortunate because it's a really strong water move. In Cinnabar, I give these scientists the old Amber and receive Vorvamon, who is basically a little Aerodactyl. Now, I haven't highlighted this, but in this game, a lot of the items have changed, so you can actually get useful held items like Choice Specs, Expert Belt, and so on. It's a very welcome addition for sure. In the Burn Mansion, the diaries talk about the legendary Digimon Lucemon, a Digimon that I actually really liked in Cyber Sleuth. but he is not obtainable at this point in time. In Blaine's gym, I totally expected the trivia to have changed to become Digimon specific, which I wasn't going to do well on, I'll be honest, but it did not happen. That feels like a bit of a missed opportunity for sure. Blaine starts off with Skull Greymon, a Digimon that I could have gotten quite a long time ago, but then I'd never have gotten War Greymon, so he wasn't worth it. Surprisingly, Skull Greymon outspeeds Mermaimon with a Power Whip that does not an insignificant amount, but then he still falls to a Scald. Again, I don't have access to Surf. Sakuyamon is a Fire Psychic, so I pivot to Gusakumon, who is hit by a freakishly strong Energy Ball. It looks like these fire Pokemon know a lot of grass moves. I decide to leave him into Aqua Jet, and even with the rain, it barely misses out on the kill, while I fall to a Dark Pulse. Dang it, that wasn't fair. Goodbye, Crabmon's final form. You were actually very useful in a number of battles. Volcanic Dramon takes him out with a Drill Peck, Rock Slides the Flame Dramon, who is pretty cool, and misses Gallantmon, who misses him in turn. But a few more Rock Slides do the job. That guy was actually pretty tough, and it's very appropriate that Volcanic Dramon was the winner of the Volcano Badge. At this point, I have the option of going to the Sevi Islands, where you can find a whole new set of Digimon, but I typically don't do that optional section in Nuzlocke, so I decide to not risk it here either. I already have enough deaths as it is. But here comes the moment we've all been waiting for. Metal Greymon finally digivolves into his final mega form, War Greymon, a Steel Fire type, in case you couldn't guess. He's pretty cool, not that he's going to be much use against Giovanni. As, basically always, Mermaimon starts the battle to make it rain, and scalds the bling-wearing rock dragon Alamon. She has a choice specs, by the way. Tuskmon and Chaos Dramon are both one-shot with Scald as well. Spinomon once again has Arena Trap, so I can't swap out. Scald does a lot, but not enough, and Mermaimon is again Power Whipped. What is up with that move? Giovanni heals a couple of times, but the ground dragon eventually does fall. I've already seen a Master Tyrannomon before, so I know he's a Dark type, which is not good for my Psychic Mermaimon. Instead, I pivot to Reguleculusmon, if that's how you pronounce it, who is crit, and probably should have died, but for some reason, Foul Play doesn't want to do any damage. It instead just boosts his own attack, which I'm fine with because it gives me a deathless victory. Before entering Victory Road, I spent a lot of time thinking about this and decide to let Vmon digivolve into Flame Dramon. He's not as strong as Magna Dramon, but Flame Dramon is certainly more iconic in my opinion. For this rival battle, I bring along a number of Digimon I don't plan on using in the Elite Four, basically so they can be sacrifices if need be. In ROM hacks like this, I've had more than enough upsets at the final rival battle, which completely changed my Elite Four strategy. You might have guessed at this point though, that Mermaimon is not one of these sacrifices. She is outsped, dodges a hurricane, so that's nice, and one-shots this bird. Skull Naramon is now a fire ghost, so staying in could be a risk, but I'm confident that Mermaimon is faster. I shouldn't have been, but it all works out in the end. Lotusmon is a grass fairy, so expecting another grass move, maybe a power whip because that move is everywhere apparently, I bring out Daramon, my grass flying bird. She resists the petal dance and easily defeats Lotusmon with a few arrow blasts. I leave her in on Wisemon, who is a pure psychic type. He is defeated in 2 hits and only sets up a future attack. I swap into Metal Edamon to take the future sight as Cyberdramon starts to Dragon Dance. Thankfully, he lets me use a close combat, which takes him right out. Last is Vicomon, the fully evolved form of Gomamon. With the rain boost, I'm kind of expecting a water move, but he uses Mjolnir instead, an electric move which one-shots Daramon with a crit. That's okay, that bird was one of my sacrifices. Andromon uses a discharge, but Vicomon starts to charge, boosting his special defense. So I decide to risk Flame Dramon to Mjolnir. He survives with 6 HP because he's a dragon type, and his own Dragon Claw does absolutely nothing. Great. And he too dies. That lets Metal Edamon come out to finish the battle with one last close combat. Well, that was not the best rival battle, but it is what it is. And I didn't lose any of the Digimon I actually wanted to keep. Before entering Victory Road, I head to the Seafoam Islands to encounter Neptunemon, the Articuno replacement. I catch him in a single Ultra Ball. I also get Goldramon, the Zapdos. Of course, I don't use either of them, but I wanted them nonetheless. While preparing for the Elite Four, I get more Digilutions like Seraphimon, the mega form of Patamon. With that, it's time to head into the Elite Four with Digimon we've all seen before. Heck, 3 of them were actually the very first 3 Digimon I ever got, back when they were still Akorimon, Kurimon, and Pichimon. And look at them now. Time certainly has flown. But that's enough reminiscing. It's time to get butt kicking. Lorelei is the one who starts with Mermimon this time, which I actually did know. So Seraphimon uses that rain to thunder. He also has Serene Grace, which lets the move paralyze, meaning he is not hit on that first Digimon. He did have an Assault Vest just in case. Hexablaumon is a pure ice type, so I bring out War Greymon to use the steel move Giga Blaster because the rain would obviously weaken his fire. It is not a one-hit KO, but thankfully, Hexablaumon misses his own one-hit KO Sheer Cold move. I would have been very upset if that had hit. Metal Garurumon is the Pokemon Matt should have had, but it's whatever. He outspeeds to hit a 4 times effective high horsepower, which War Greymon only survives because he had 2 turns to heal with leftovers. That was close. His own 4 times effective move, even in the rain, takes out that puppy. Or not. Dang it. At this point, I should have brought out Mermimon, but instead I pivot to Seraphimon, which was objectively a stupid move. This is a steel ice type. He is obviously strong against a flying fairy. I have no idea what I was thinking here. Maybe I just panicked. Regardless, Seraphimon survives, not for a lack of trying on my part, and takes out Garurumon. This brings out Plesiomon. I've used this mon a bit, so I know that he is a physical defensive tank with bad special defense. So I'm confident that Thunder will be a one-shot. And at least I was right about that. Last is the Ice Psychic Dianamon, who is basically a legendary Digimon with a 660 base stat total. I bring out Mermaimon, who has great special defense, to Choice Spec Shadow Ball, though it's not enough for a 2-hit KO. After a few hits, I then pivot to Metal Edamon on a Night Slash, hope he outspeeds, which he does not, but survives the Earth Power and Iron Heads. So I did beat Lorelei, and I didn't lose anybody, but look at how close I got. I need to do better next time because that was a bad start. Hopefully Bruno should be easy. He's Bruno, after all. War Greymon starts off by flamethrowing the Metal Fire type Grappleomon a couple of times. I pivot to Weissmon on a missed Stone Edge by the pure fighting type Zambomon, and wins in 2 Aeroblasts. Mirage Gaomon head smashes Mermaimon on the swap, but falls to a Psychic. Not wanting to be electrocuted by Ranzanmon, I pivot to Andromon to tank a Volt Tackle as this thing gets a speed boost. That does not bode well. I leave him in to try and Metal Sound, but Andromon is close combated to death. That is actually a tough loss. He has been a consistent and vital part of my team since before the Misty battle, and I lose him now? Here? To Bruno of all people? That's lame. But his sacrifice will not be in vain, because War Greymon survives a close combat, this guy is a beast, and responds with an Earthquake. Of course, we still have Machine Dramon, a steel ground type. I pivot to Mermaimon on a Flash Cannon, interesting choice there Bruno, and one shot with a Scald. Again, that battle was not so great. I guess that's just what happens when you don't know what Digimon to expect or what moves they're going to have. For Agatha, I once again lead with Mermaimon. She is Shadow Clawed by the Rock Ghost type, but survives the hit and scalds. Lilithmon is Poison Flying, so hoping to outspeed, I stay in, do not outspeed, but survive a Poison Jab, and fail to one-shot with Psychic anyway. War Greymon resists another Poison Jab on the swap, and Flamethrowers. Now Puppetmon is a Grass Ghost who survives Flamethrower, thanks to the rain, but gets burned, rendering his hammer arm not very useful. He then falls on the next hit. Beelzemon is a pure Dark type that Metal Edamon easily takes out with a close combat, since he just spams Nasty Plot. Agatha's last Pokemon is Diaboromon, a Dark Poison type. Since I don't have an Omnimon present yet, I pivot to Weissmon on a crit Dark Pulse to Earthquake. At least, that was the plan, but an Ice Punch renders that flying dragon dead. Dang it. There goes the second Digimon I ever got. Rest in peace, Kurumon. War Greymon does outspeed, contrary to what was portrayed in the movie, and wins in 2 Earthquakes. but once again it's a solemn victory, having lost yet another Digimon. Lance, for whatever reason, has decided to use fairy types now. That's part of the reason I brought 3 steel types on my Elite Four team. Now I still don't know what all of his Digimon are, but I lead with War Greymon nonetheless. His Giga Blaster one-shots Marine Angemon. Cherubimon is a fighting fairy, so I pivot to Seraphimon, who avoids a Lucky Earthquake and takes him out with an Aerial Ace and Testament. This brings out his own Seraphimon, but mine runs back to War Greymon, who takes a Steel Wing like nothing, and then Giga Blasters in return. Ophanimon is also one-shot, but this brings out Venusmon, a 735 base stat Digimon. To put that in perspective, Mewtwo is at 680, so this thing is quite a bit stronger than even a Mewtwo. Seems fair. I'm hoping she doesn't have anything too strong, but War Greymon outspeeds and one-shots anyway. Well, that works for me. Lance was by far the easiest Elite Four member. I certainly appreciated that swap to Fairy Digimon, but this brings us to our last battle, the ultimate rival fight. It starts off similar to every other rival battle. Mermaimon lets it rain, but this time takes a Thunder from that Firebird before scalding it. I did some EV speed training before the Elite Four, so now she does outspeed the Skullmeramon. She's also 4 levels higher. Wisemon hits a decently strong Dark Pulse and outspeeds, so not wanting to risk another hit, I pivot to War Greymon with an Assault Vest. The rain isn't all that helpful to him, but Giga Blaster again isn't a fire move. Now Lotusmon is a grass type, but even with the rain, the super effective Terra Force is a one-shot. This brings out Vicamon, who is 2 levels higher than I thought. Oh well. Metal Edamon is Meownerd and hits a strong close combat, but it's not enough, and he falls to another hammer hit. I'm thinking that at that HP, Seraphimon can take him out with an Earthquake, but then he heals with the Berry. Seraphimon doesn't have the highest attack, so I doubt that Earthquake, even with it being super effective, can do that much. Instead, I go for the Fairy type Testament move, which is only 90% accurate, so of course it misses at this clutch moment. And Seraphimon dies. Of course he does. Alright War Greymon, I guess you can just come on out to Earthquake here. Matt's last Digimon is Cyberdramon, which is very anticlimactic because he is kind of weak and is Giga Blasted a couple of times. And so, with only 2 Digimon remaining, I have beaten Matt and become the Digimon Teamer Champion of the world. That's what I'm talking about. But don't take off yet, there are a few last things I want to do. First, I put all of my dead Digis in the box. That is a lot of deaths, way more than I typically have in a Nuzlocke. So, I guess the ROM hacker was right. This game is much harder to Nuzlocke. But I still did it. In your face, man. Also, thanks for the ROM hack. Now, I already know who this is, because I have the full Digidex, but in Cerulean Cave, you encounter Mewtwo, who is actually Lucemon X. This was already hinted at in the Pokemon Mansion, so that's pretty cool. He is level 100, so I might as well just use my Master Ball here. This guy has a stat total of 780, equivalent to a Mega Mewtwo. Of course, that is nothing compared to what happens when War Greymon, or Metal Garurumon, gets to level 100, because that is how they evolve into Omnimon, who gets 2 255 power attacks in Omni Sword and Cannon. This guy has base stats of 12 freaking hundred, even higher than a Pokemon that you can't ever use. And as if that weren't crazy enough, if you get 50 Kanto Digimon in your Digidex, you can obtain Millenniummon, who is actually pretty weak. But at level 70, this thing breaks free to become Zed Millenniummon, with a whopping 1,530 base stat total. In addition, he has no type at all, his stats are crazy high, and his moves are pretty impressive. So yeah, once you get him, there's really nothing that can stand in your way. I just wanted to show off some of that insane power scaling here at the end. The last thing I want to do is highlight the final 2 survivors of the Elite Four. War Greymon, who was obviously my starter Digimon at the beginning of our journey. And, more importantly, Ancient Mermaimon, who was only the 2nd Digimon I caught back when she was a Peachymon. And while I do like War Greymon, Mermaimon was 100% the most useful Digimon in this run. Once she fully digivolved, she was on my team nearly 24/7, which is more than I can say about anyone else. So I'm really glad that she survived the Elite Four, because she deserved it, and she is indeed a survivor. And that ends my run. I know there is some post-game stuff you can do, but this video's already gone on long enough. Honestly though, this is the most fun I've had playing a Pokemon game in a good long while. It can get a bit dull, playing the same games over and over and over again week after week. But this was a fantastic breath of fresh air. If you like Digimon, or just want to play through Kanto with new monsters, I strongly encourage you to play this game. Just be careful with cheats, you don't want to lose HMs like I did. Thank you for watching, and maybe I'll see you again in the digital world.